The moment Michael Crow stepped into the Seattle tech firm, he felt a surge of purpose. At 32, he'd clawed his way from a small-town kid in Tacoma to a marketing lead in a bustling company. His first day was a whirlwind of handshakes and quick introductions, but one encounter stood out. Tom Wilson, a sharp-witted colleague with a knack for breaking the ice, offered to show Michael the ropes. "You'll survive this place," Tom said with a grin, handing Michael a coffee during a chaotic team meeting. They clicked instantly, bonding over a shared love for basketball and 80s rock anthems. By the end of the week, they were grabbing lunch, trading predictions for the next NBA game, and laughing over obscure band references that left their coworkers baffled. Michael's warmth wasn't just for show. He was the guy who'd stay late to help a struggling teammate or volunteer to organize the office charity drive. That first week, he noticed a junior analyst fumbling with a presentation. Without a second thought, he spent an hour after work walking her through the slides, his patience earning her gratitude and a nod of respect from the team. It was classic Michael, always ready to lend a hand, always building bridges. But beneath that easygoing charm, he had a razor-sharp instinct for spotting trouble. And trouble was closer than he thought. The first hint came 3 weeks later, when Michael and his wife, Emily, hosted Tom and his girlfriend, Sarah, for dinner at their home. Emily, a graphic designer with a quick laugh and a knack for planning, was thrilled to meet Michael's new friend. She'd spent the day prepping a meal, humming as she arranged the table, eager to break the routine of their quiet married life. Michael loved her enthusiasm. It was one of the things that drew him to her 7 years ago. When Tom and Sarah arrived, right on time with a bottle of wine in hand, the evening promised to be perfect. Tom's charisma filled the room, and Sarah's witty stories kept everyone laughing. But as Michael opened the door to greet them, something shifted. Emily, standing by the kitchen doorway, froze. Her hand tightened around the edge of the counter, her smile faltering for a split second before she forced it back. It was subtle, too quick for Tom or Sarah to notice, but Michael caught it. Her eyes locked on Tom, wide with something he couldn't place. Surprise? Fear? It vanished as fast as it came. Emily stepped forward, her voice bright as she thanked Sarah for the wine and ushered them to the table. The dinner flowed smoothly, filled with chatter about work, weekend hikes, and the latest streaming shows. Tom recounted a disastrous camping trip that had everyone in stitches, and Sarah teased him mercilessly, her laughter infectious. Emily joined in, asking questions, pouring wine, playing the perfect host. But Michael couldn't shake that fleeting moment. Her rigid posture, the way her hand trembled slightly as she passed the salad. As the night wound down, Tom and Sarah left with promises of a rematch at a local pub quiz. Michael closed the door, turning to Emily, who was already clearing plates. "You okay?" he asked, keeping his tone light. She glanced up, her movements quick, almost too quick. "Yeah, just a little tired," she said, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Long day." Michael nodded, but his gut churned. He'd always trusted Emily implicitly. They'd built their life on honesty, on late-night talks that left no secrets unturned. But that look, that split-second pause, planted a seed of doubt. He brushed it off, telling himself it was nothing. Emily was stressed, maybe overwhelmed. The dinner had been a hit, hadn't it? No need to overthink it. The next day at work, Michael threw himself into a new project, but the unease lingered. Tom was his usual self, cracking jokes over coffee, suggesting they catch a Mariners game that weekend. Michael laughed along, but his mind kept drifting back to Emily's reaction. Had she met Tom before? No, that didn't make sense. She'd have mentioned it. They'd both grown up in Tacoma, sure, but it was a big enough place. Coincidences happen. Still, as he watched Tom animatedly pitch an idea in a meeting, Michael's instincts kicked in. Something wasn't right. He didn't know what, but he was determined to find out. The weeks following the dinner blurred into a rhythm of camaraderie. Michael and Tom became inseparable at work, their lunch breaks filled with debates over playoff predictions and plans for a group hike. Tom's girlfriend, Sarah, and Michael's wife, Emily, hit off too, swapping recipes and joking about their partner's obsession with classic rock. The four of them started spending weekends together, grabbing beers at a local brewery, cheering at a Mariners game, or hosting game nights that stretched late. To anyone watching, it was the picture of a perfect new friendship. But for Michael, that fleeting moment of Emily's unease at the dinner gnawed at him. a quiet splinter in his trust. It started small. One morning, Emily mentioned she had a doctor's appointment and would head straight to work after. Michael, swamped with a new campaign deadline, nodded absently, wishing her luck. At the office, he noticed Tom's desk was empty. "Where's Wilson?" he asked a colleague, keeping his tone casual. "Oh, he's out for a medical thing," came the reply. Michael's stomach tightened. Both Emily and Tom, absent for appointments on the same morning? He shook it off. Coincidences happen. But when he texted Emily to check in, her reply was curt, "Still at the dock. Talk later." No details, no warmth. It wasn't like her. By the next week, the pattern repeated. Emily left early for another appointment, and Tom was conveniently out again, this time for personal errands. Michael's instincts, honed from years of reading people, screamed that something was off. He tried to focus on work, but his mind kept drifting to Emily's frozen expression that night at dinner. Had she known Tom before? The thought felt absurd. Emily was open, honest, the kind of person who'd share her whole life story over coffee. But the more he thought about it, the more he remembered. Both had grown up in Tacoma. Same town, same age. Could they have crossed paths? Determined to quiet his doubts, Michael started digging. Over lunch, he steered the conversation with Tom toward their pasts. "Tacoma, huh? Ever hang out at that old diner on Pacific Avenue?" he asked, keeping his voice light. Tom's eyes lit up. "Man, I lived at that place in high school. Best milkshakes." Michael's pulse quickened. Emily had mentioned that diner too, a nostalgic spot from her teenage years. He pressed further, asking about old haunts, parks, arcades, the movie theater by the mall. Tom's answers mirrored places Emily had described in passing, down to the skate park where she'd once sprained her wrist. Michael kept his expression neutral, but inside his thoughts raced. Why hadn't either of them mentioned this before? The next day, Emily was her usual self, chatting about a new design project over breakfast. But when Michael casually mentioned Tom's Tacoma stories, her fork paused mid-air, just for a second. "Oh, cool," she said, too quickly, before changing the subject to a client meeting. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He lay staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction. Emily's hesitation. The mis-absence. The shared hometown. It was too much to be random. He wasn't the jealous type, but this felt like a puzzle with missing pieces, and he needed answers. On Friday, Michael decided to test the waters. He texted Emily during lunch, asking if she was free to grab coffee near her office. "In a meeting," she replied, promising to call in an hour. Meanwhile, Tom was out again, another errand. Michael's patience snapped. He grabbed his keys, told his boss he'd be back soon, and drove to Emily's office in downtown Seattle. The building's glass doors reflected the gray sky as he waited in his car, eyes fixed on the entrance. 10 minutes passed, then 20. No sign of Emily. His phone buzzed. Tom, sounding upbeat. "Hey man, we need you back here. Client's asking for you." Michael's grip tightened on the wheel. "Handle it," he said, his voice clipped, and hung up. The call felt like a deflection, a way to pull him away. When Emily finally texted, saying she was wrapping up, Michael replied, "I'm outside your office. Meet me." Silence followed. No response, no movement at the entrance. His heart pounded as he scanned every passerby, half expecting to see her with Tom. 30 minutes later, his phone lit up with a call from Emily. "I got held up," she said, her voice rushed. Meeting ran long, but it was off-site. "I'm heading back now." Michael's jaw clenched. Off-site? She hadn't mentioned that. He drove back to the office, his mind a storm of suspicion. The pieces were starting to fit, and he didn't like the picture they formed that Michael's drive back from Emily's office left him rattled, his hands gripping the steering wheel as if it could anchor his spiraling thoughts. The pieces didn't add up. Her off-site meeting, Tom's absence, their shared Tacoma roots. He wasn't paranoid, but he wasn't naive either. Years of reading clients and colleagues had sharpened his instincts, and they were screaming now. Something was being hidden. He resolved to stay calm, to gather facts before confronting anyone. Accusing Emily or Tom without proof would only backfire. But the weight of suspicion pressed harder with every passing hour. At work, Michael played his part. He laughed at Tom's jokes, joined in on project discussions, and kept their usual banter alive. But his eyes were sharper now, catching every glance, every pause. During a coffee break, he tested Tom again. "Ever run into anyone from Tacoma around here?" he asked, stirring his drink with deliberate nonchalance. Tom shrugged, his smile easy. Nah, most of my old crowd scattered. You know how it is. The answer felt too smooth, too rehearsed. Michael nodded, but his mind flagged it. Another detail that didn't sit right. That evening, Emily was all smiles, talking about a new client pitch over dinner. Michael listened, nodding at the right moments, but her chatter felt like a performance. When he mentioned Tom's Tacoma comment casually, her hand twitched, knocking over a glass of water. She laughed it off, grabbing a towel, but the fumble betrayed her. "Clumsy me," she said, avoiding his gaze. Michael's chest tightened. He didn't push, not yet. Instead, he started paying closer attention to her routines. Her phone, once left carelessly on the counter, was now always in her pocket. Her meetings were vaguely described, with no specifics unless he pressed. Each dodge fueled his resolve to dig deeper. The next morning, Michael took a calculated step. He logged into Emily's social media from their shared laptop, something he'd never done before. Guilt pricked at him, but he pushed it aside. No messages from Tom, no obvious red flags. But as he scrolled through her friend list, he froze. A profile from years ago, barely active, listed Tom as a connection. The account was old, tied to her high school days. Why hadn't she mentioned it? He cross-checked Tom's profile, finding photos from Tacoma. Same skate park, same diner, same streets Emily had reminisced about. The overlap was undeniable. Michael's pulse raced as he closed the laptop, his suspicions hardening into certainty. They'd known each other closely. That afternoon, Tom was out again, this time for a family matter. Michael's boss mentioned it offhand, unaware of the storm brewing in Michael's head. When Michael texted Emily to check her plans, she replied, "Stuck in a team meeting. Catch up tonight." He stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. Instead of replying, he called her office line. It rang out, then went to voicemail. His heart sank. He told his boss he needed to step out for an urgent errand and drove back to Emily's workplace. The same glass doors mocked him as he parked across the street, watching the entrance like a hawk. No Emily, no familiar faces, just the steady flow of strangers. 20 minutes later, his phone buzzed. Tom again, his voice too cheerful. "Yo, Mike, where you at? We got a client call in 10. Michael's patience frayed. "I'm busy," he snapped, cutting the call. Seconds later, Emily texted, "Meeting's done. Heading to a coffee shop to finish some work." Coffee shop? She hadn't mentioned that. Michael's blood boiled. He typed, "Which one?" "I'm nearby." No reply. He waited, eyes locked on the entrance, but she never appeared. The silence from his phone was deafening, each minute stretching his nerves thinner. When he returned to the office, Tom was back, all smiles, as if nothing was amiss. "Missed you, man," Tom said, clapping Michael's shoulder. The gesture felt hollow, like a mask slipping. Michael forced a grin, but his mind was elsewhere. That night, he confronted Emily, keeping his tone even. "Were you really in a meeting today?" She hesitated just a beat too long before nodding. "Yeah, it dragged on." "What?" Her eyes darted to her phone, then back to him. Michael didn't buy it. "You sure?" He pressed, his voice low. Emily's laugh was brittle. "You're acting weird, Mike. Everything's fine." But it wasn't. The air between them crackled with unspoken truths, and Michael knew he was close to unraveling them, that Michael's world felt like it was teetering on a knife's edge. Emily's evasive answers, Tom's convenient absences, and the undeniable link to their shared Tacoma past had turned his suspicions into a near certainty. He wasn't imagining things. There was a truth being buried, and he was done waiting for it to surface. His trust in Emily, once unshakable, was fraying with every dodged question. At work, he kept up the facade, trading quips with Tom, but each laugh felt like a lie. He needed proof, something solid to confront the betrayal he feared was real. The next morning, Michael woke early, his mind racing. Emily was already up, scrolling through her phone at the kitchen table. "Morning meeting today?" he asked, his tone deliberately casual. She nodded, barely looking up. "Yep, client stuff. Should be quick." Her voice was steady, but her fingers tapped nervously against the phone. Michael didn't push. He learned pushing too soon tipped her off. Instead, he waited until she left, then checked her calendar app on their shared laptop. No client meeting was listed. His heart thudded as he pocketed his keys and headed to work, determined to catch her in the act. At the office, Tom was there, but his usual charm seemed strained. He avoided Michael's gaze during a team huddle, focusing instead on his laptop. Michael seized the moment. "Got any plans after work?" he asked, leaning against Tom's desk. Tom hesitated, then flashed a grin. "Nah, just chilling with Sarah. You guys should join us." The invitation felt hollow, a deflection. Michael smiled tightly. "Maybe." As Tom turned back to his screen, Michael noticed his phone light up with a notification, a message from an unsaved number. He couldn't see the text, but the timing felt too convenient. By noon, Emily texted, "Running late, grabbing lunch with the team." Michael's jaw tightened. He called her office line, voicemail again. He tried her cell. It rang twice before she picked up. Her voice rushed. "Hey, I'm swamped. Can we talk later?" Before he could respond, she hung up. Michael's patience snapped. He told his boss he needed to handle a personal matter and drove to Emily's office for the third time that week. The familiar glass doors loomed as he parked, his eyes scanning the entrance. No sign of her. He waited, the minutes crawling by, each one fueling his anger. His phone buzzed Tom again. "Mike, you coming back? We're slammed here." Michael ignored it. Then another text from Emily. "At a cafe, finishing some designs. Be home soon." He typed back. "Which cafe?" "I'm in the area." No reply. His fingers drummed the steering wheel, his mind racing through every possible scenario. Were they together? Had they been lying this whole time? The thought made his chest ache, but he pushed it down, focusing on the plan forming in his head. He needed to confront them, but not without evidence. Back at the office, Michael took a bolder step. During a quiet moment, he accessed the company's share drive, where Tom had uploaded project files. Hidden in a folder labeled Miscellaneous, he found a document with a list of contacts. One entry caught his eye, Emily's name, with a phone number and an old Tacoma address. The document was dated months before Michael joined the company. His blood ran cold. Tom had known Emily before they met at the dinner. This wasn't a coincidence. It was deliberate. That night, Michael waited until Emily was in the shower to check her phone. He'd never crossed this line before, but the stakes were too high. Her messages were clean, suspiciously so, but her email app showed a draft she hadn't sent. It was addressed to Tom. "We need to talk. This can't go on." Michael's hands shook as he read it. The draft was vague, but it was enough. He set the phone down, his mind made up. Confrontation was inevitable. He met Tom after work at a quiet bar, away from prying eyes. Michael didn't waste time. "I know you and Emily go way back," he said, his voice low and steady. Tom's smile faltered, his eyes darting to the exit. "What are you talking about, man?" he tried, but Michael cut him off. "Don't. I found her name in your files. I saw her email. What's going on?" Tom's shoulders slumped, his bravado crumbling. "It's not what you think," he started, but Michael leaned in, his gaze unyielding. "Then tell me what it is." Tom took a deep breath, his voice barely above a whisper. "We dated in high school. 2 years intense. When I saw her at your dinner, it stirred things up. We met for coffee a few weeks ago. Old feelings came back, but it was a mistake. Just once." Michael's fists clenched under the table, but he stayed calm. "You slept with her?" he asked, his tone ice cold. Tom looked away, ashamed. "It was one time, Mike. I swear, it didn't mean anything." The confession hit like a punch, but Michael held his ground. He stood, leaving Tom with a single word, "Stay away." At home, Michael faced Emily. "How long have you known Tom?" he asked, his voice cutting through the silence. She froze, her eyes wide. "Since the dinner," she stammered. Michael shook his head. "No lies, Emily. I know about Tacoma. I know about the coffee. I know it all." Her face crumpled, tears welling up. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "He reached out and I got caught up in the past. It was one moment, Mike. I swear." Michael's heart shattered, but his resolve didn't. He needed one more step to end this. Michael stood in the dimly lit living room, his heart a furnace of betrayal and resolve. Emily's tearful confession that she'd rekindled something with Tom, her high school love, had shattered the trust they'd built over 7 years. Tom's admission in the bar, confirming a single, reckless moment, only deepened the wound. Michael wasn't a man to lash out in anger, but he wasn't one to let deceit fester either. He needed closure, and he needed it to be final. The truth was out, but the consequences were just beginning. Emily sat on the couch, her hands clasped tightly, eyes pleading for a chance to explain. "It was a mistake, Mike," she repeated, her voice cracking. "I got lost in memories. It didn't mean anything." Michael's gaze was unrelenting. It meant everything, he said, his tone cold but steady. You lied. You hid it. You broke us. She reached for his hand, but he stepped back, his decision made. He wasn't here to negotiate. There was one last step to ensure justice, not just for himself, but for everyone tangled in this mess. He picked up Emily's phone from the counter and handed it to her. Call Sarah, he said, his voice like iron. Tell her everything. Now. Emily's eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. Mike, please, don't do this, she whispered, but he didn't budge. You owe her the truth. Call her. Trembling, Emily dialed Sarah's number and put on speaker. The phone rang twice before Sarah's voice came through, cautious but warm. Hey, what's up? Emily's breath hitched, and Michael nodded, urging her on. Sarah, she began, her voice shaking. Tom and we dated in high school. A few weeks ago, we met up, and we betrayed you both. I'm so sorry. The line went silent, the weight of the confession hanging in the air. Then, a sharp intake of breath, and Sarah hung up without a word. Michael didn't wait for Emily's tears to start again. He moved to the bedroom, pulling suitcases from the closet. He packed her essentials, clothes, shoes, toiletries, methodically, ignoring her pleas to talk. We can fix this, Mike, she said, following him, her voice desperate. It was one mistake. He zipped the last bag shut and turned to her. You made your choice. Now live with it. He carried the suitcases to the front door, called a taxi, and set them outside. When the car arrived, he looked at her one last time. Leave, he said, his voice final. Emily stood frozen, tears streaming, then grabbed her bags and walked out, the door closing behind her with a soft thud. The next morning, Michael went to work with a singular focus. He requested a private meeting with his boss, Karen, and laid out the situation. Tom's betrayal, Emily's involvement, the impact on his ability to work alongside Tom. I can't stay in the same space as him, Michael said, his tone professional but firm. Karen listened, her expression shifting from shock to understanding. I'll handle it, she promised. By the end of the day, Tom was called into HR. The decision was swift. Tom was let go, his desk cleared out by the next morning. Whispers rippled through the office, but Michael stayed silent, letting the facts speak for themselves. Sarah, too, moved decisively. Michael learned through a mutual friend that she'd confronted Tom that same night. Devastated by his betrayal, she ended their relationship and moved out within days, filing for a legal separation. Emily tried reaching out to Michael, leaving voicemails and texts begging for forgiveness, but he didn't respond. Each message felt like a fresh cut, but he deleted them, refusing to let her pull him back. He heard through colleagues that Emily had taken a job in Portland, starting over alone. Tom, too, vanished from their social circle, his reputation tarnished. Weeks later, Michael sat alone in a quiet coffee shop, the same one Emily had claimed to be at during one of her lies. The irony wasn't lost on him. He sipped his coffee, reflecting on a wreckage of the past month. 2 relationships destroyed, 4 lives upended, all because of a fleeting lapse in judgment. He felt no joy in the outcome, only a grim satisfaction that the truth had prevailed. Emily and Tom hadn't reconnected. There was no dramatic reunion, no attempt to salvage what they'd broken. They'd each gone their separate ways, carrying the weight of their choices. Michael, too, was moving forward. He threw himself into work, took up running to clear his mind, and started reconnecting with old friends. The pain lingered, but it was tempered by a newfound clarity. He'd trusted his instincts, uncovered the truth, and acted with restraint, choosing justice over vengeance. As he paid for his coffee and stepped into the Seattle rain, he felt lighter, unburdened by the lies that had once clouded his life. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was his to walk alone, stronger for it.